The stars above Earth had always been peaceful. Tonight, they brought death. Commander Thrallix stood on the bridge of his warship, watching the small blue planet grow larger on his display screens. His four eyes studied the primitive world with something close to pity. 3,000 years his people had ruled the stars. 74 worlds had fallen before the Vryloth Empire. This would be number 75. Commander, their technology is even weaker than our initial scan suggested, his second officer reported. No energy shields. No plasma weapons. Their fastest ships barely reach 1/10 light speed. Thrallix clicked his mandibles together in satisfaction. Then we honor them with the Crimson Legion. They will remember that the Vryloth showed them respect, even in conquest. Behind him, 5,000 elite soldiers stood ready in their drop pods. Each warrior wore powered armor that could withstand direct nuclear strikes. Each carried weapons that could melt through steel like butter. The Crimson Legion had never lost a battle. They had conquered species far more advanced than these humans dot far below. On the Korean peninsula, Lieutenant Day sat in a dark room filled with computer screens. He was tired. His shift at the listening post should have ended 2 hours ago, but something strange kept appearing on his monitors. Objects moving faster than any satellite. Objects that didn't respond to identification requests. "This is Station 7 to Pacific Command." Day spoke into his headset. "I have unknown contacts entering the solar system." Repeat, unknown contacts. Static answered him for several long seconds. Then a woman's voice came through, calm but urgent. "Station 7, this is Major Hana at Pacific Command. Confirm your readings." Day's hands moved quickly across his keyboard. "Confirmed, Major. 12 large vessels. Current trajectory puts them in Earth orbit within 6 hours." Thousands of kilometers away, Major Hannah stared at her own screens. Her mind raced through possibilities. Chinese spacecraft? Russian? American? But no. The energy signatures were wrong. The propulsion systems were unlike anything in human databases. "Station 7. Keep tracking them. I'm alerting the Defense Council." Hana's voice stayed steady, but her hand trembled slightly as she reached for the red phone on her desk. In Geneva, emergency meetings began. In Washington, Moscow, Beijing, London, and Delhi, leaders woke to impossible news. Humanity was not alone in the universe, and their new neighbors were not here to talk. The Vryloth ships moved into orbit like sharks circling prey. They positioned themselves above 6 major cities across the planet. Thrallix selected his landing zones with practiced efficiency. Major population centers, seats of government, places where human resistance would collapse the fastest. "Deploy the Crimson Legion," he commanded. The drop pods launched from orbit, streaking through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. In Seoul, millions of people looked up at the night sky and saw fire raining down. In New York, sirens wailed as police tried to evacuate downtown areas. In Moscow, anti-aircraft guns turned toward the sky, but held their fire. No one knew what these things were. The first pod landed in Mongolia, crushing a small village beneath its bulk. The ramp lowered with a hiss of hydraulics. Thrallix stepped out onto human soil, his armor gleaming in the morning sun. Behind him, 500 soldiers formed perfect ranks. "Begin the demonstration," Thrallix ordered. The Vryloth marched toward the nearest city. Human military units scrambled to intercept them. In Beijing, General Youssef gave orders to engage the invaders with everything available. Tank divisions moved into position. Fighter jets screamed overhead. Infantry dug in behind hastily constructed barricades. The battle lasted 11 minutes. Vryloth. Energy weapons cut through human tanks like paper. Their shields absorbed bullets and missiles without a scratch. Soldiers fired until their ammunition ran out, then watched in horror as the aliens kept advancing. The jets fell from the sky, torn apart by weapons that moved faster than pilots could see. Across the planet, similar scenes unfolded. In Seoul, Captain Hyan commanded a mechanized unit positioned along the Han River. He watched through binoculars as the alien soldiers approached. They moved in perfect formation, like machines rather than living beings. "Hold your fire," Hyan ordered his men. "Let them get closer. I need to see how they fight." His subordinates looked at him like he was crazy. But Hyan had fought in border skirmishes. He knew that rushing to attack without understanding the enemy was suicide. Better to wait. Better to watch. The Vryloth reached the river and began crossing. Human forces opened fire. Hyan observed everything through his binoculars. He saw the alien shields flicker and shimmer. He saw the timing of their weapon recharges. He saw patterns in their movements. Recording everything, Hyan said into his radio, transmitting data to headquarters. Then the aliens noticed his position. Energy bolts carved through his vehicles. Men died screaming. Hyan kept his binoculars steady, kept recording, even as his world burned around him. "Target priority pattern observed," he spoke quickly into his recorder. "Shield flicker occurs 0.3 seconds after discharge. Recommend focused fire during." An energy bolt struck his command vehicle. The transmission ended. At Pacific Command, Major Hana received Hyan's final data burst. She studied the numbers and tactical observations with cold calculation. Captain Hyan was dead. 2,000 other soldiers were dead. But his sacrifice had given them something precious: information. "Distribute this to all military networks immediately," Hana ordered. "Every observation, every tactical note. If our people are going to die fighting these things, let's make sure their deaths teach us how to kill them." In the Mongolian desert, Commander Threlix stood atop a conquered human military base. Bodies lay scattered around him. Human weapons lay broken and useless. Smoke rose from burning vehicles. Resistance was minimal, as expected, he reported to his ship. "Begin broadcasting surrender terms. The humans will submit within 3 rotations." But as the alien commander surveyed the battlefield, he noticed something odd. The humans had fought far longer than they should have. Their weapons were useless, yet they kept firing. Their vehicles were destroyed, yet they kept advancing. Even as they died, they transmitted data, recorded observations, analyzed attack patterns. Threlix dismissed the thought. Courage was admirable, but ultimately meaningless against superior technology. He had no way of knowing that humanity's greatest weapon had already been deployed. Not missiles or bombs, but something far more dangerous. The willingness to learn from every death, to adapt to every defeat, to never stop fighting until victory or extinction. The invasion had begun. The Crimson Legion had landed. And somewhere in a bunker beneath Seoul, scientists were already dissecting Hyan's observations, looking for weaknesses in armor that had never been breached. The Vryloth had conquered 74 worlds. Earth would teach them why number 75 would be different. The first week of invasion belonged to the Vryloth. City after city fell under their advance. Human governments collapsed or fled underground. Military bases became scorched craters. The Crimson Legion marched across Earth like an unstoppable tide, and the planet bled. Commander Threlix established his forward command in the ruins of Ulambatar. His soldiers had transformed the human city into a fortress. Energy barriers surrounded the perimeter. Automated defense towers scanned for any movement. Supply ships landed every 6 hours, bringing fresh ammunition and equipment from orbit. "Status report," Threlix demanded. "All 6 landing zones secured." "Commander," his tactical officer responded. Human casualties estimated at 53,000 military, 200,000 civilian. Our casualties, 0. Threlix felt satisfaction but also unease. 0 casualties should have pleased him. Yet something about the human resistance bothered him. They lost every battle, but never truly retreated. Even when surrounded and outgunned, they fought until death took them. Why? In Seoul, deep beneath the destroyed city center, Yuna worked without sleep. The civilian scientist hunched over a damaged piece of alien technology, her eyes red from exhaustion. Around her, other researchers analyzed fragments of Ryloth armor, weapons, and shield generators pulled from a crashed scout ship. The shield frequency is consistent, Yuna muttered, more to herself than her colleagues. They don't randomize it. They don't need to. Nothing we have can penetrate it anyway. So we're looking at the wrong problem, another scientist named Minho suggested. We can't break through their shields. But what if we didn't have to? Yuna looked up sharply. What do you mean? Minho pulled up Captain Hyan's last transmission on a monitor. The shield flickers when recharging. 0.3 seconds. What if we hit them during that flicker? Not to penetrate the shield, but to overload the recharge cycle? The idea was insane. It was brilliant. Yuna's mind raced through calculations. We would need perfect timing and enough power to surge their system. But yes, it could work. 3 days later, they had a prototype. A frequency disruptor no bigger than a briefcase. It wouldn't destroy alien shields, but it might disrupt them long enough for conventional weapons to work. Maybe they needed someone to test it. Someone crazy enough to walk into certain death with an unproven device. Lieutenant Tae volunteered immediately. Tae was Special Forces, one of the few soldiers who had survived close contact with the Vryloth. He was 30 years old, had a wife and daughter in a refugee camp, and absolutely nothing left to lose. The aliens had destroyed his home, his unit, his country. Testing an experimental weapon seemed reasonable by comparison. You understand this might not work, Yuna told him as she strapped the disruptor to his combat vest. You might die for nothing. We're all dying for something, Tae replied. Might as well make it count. He took a small team into the Siberian wilderness, where Vryloth supply convoys traveled between their landing zones. Tae studied the routes for 2 days, learning their patterns. The aliens were efficient but predictable. They followed the same paths, the same schedules, with military precision. On the 3rd night, Tae's team set up an ambush in a narrow mountain pass. They planted explosives along the road and positioned themselves on the high ground. Then they waited. The convoy appeared exactly on schedule. 6 armored transports, escorted by 12 soldiers. Tae's heart hammered in his chest. This was suicide. But if Yuna's device worked, activate disruptor, he whispered into his radio. The briefcase-sized device began humming. On Tae's scope, he watched the alien shields flicker and pulse, like someone was throwing rocks into a still pond. The Vryloth soldiers stopped, confused by their malfunctioning equipment. Fire! Human weapons roared. Bullets that should have bounced off alien shields suddenly found flesh. Explosives that should have been absorbed by energy fields instead tore through vehicle armor. The Vryloth scattered, trying to return fire, but their targeting systems were disrupted. It was over in 90 seconds. 12 alien soldiers lay dead. 6 transports were destroyed. Tae's team had suffered 1 casualty. It works, Tae breathed into his radio. Repeat, the disruptor works. The message reached Pacific Command within minutes. Major Hannah immediately ordered mass production. The device was crude and had limited range, but it was a chance. The first real chance humanity had found. Across the planet, other soldiers were learning different lessons. In the ruins of Detroit, Sergeant Wu discovered that Vryloth soldiers, despite their advanced technology, were terrible at urban combat. They had been trained for open battlefields and honorable engagements. They didn't know how to fight in bombed-out buildings where every corner hid a threat. Wu led his unit through the rubble like ghosts. They struck from sewers and collapsed subway tunnels. They used homemade explosives hidden in debris. They fought dirty, fought mean, fought in ways the Ryloth manual of warfare never anticipated. These humans fight without honor, one alien soldier reported after barely escaping an ambush. They hide. They use traps. They refuse proper combat. But the reports went ignored. The Ryloth High Command dismissed such concerns. Honor didn't matter. Technology would win. It always had. Commander Threlix began to worry when casualty reports started arriving. Small numbers at first. A patrol lost here. A convoy ambushed there. Nothing significant. But the numbers grew. 5 casualties became 10. 10 became 30. By the end of the second week, the Crimson Legion had lost 200 soldiers. Request reinforcements from the Empire. Threlix told his communications officer. The response came quickly. Too quickly. Reinforcement request denied. 5,000 elite soldiers are sufficient for one primitive world. Complete your mission, Commander. Threlix felt something he hadn't experienced in 40 campaigns. Doubt. Meanwhile, Major Hannah coordinated the resistance from her underground command center. Every small victory was cataloged, analyzed, and shared with every human military unit still fighting. Tay's disruptor technology spread across the globe. Wu's urban combat tactics became standard training. Captain Hyon's observations were studied by every soldier with a weapon. The humans learned fast. Terrifyingly fast. A Ryloth patrol in South America encountered what they thought was a disabled human tank. When they approached to investigate, the tank exploded, taking the entire patrol with it. The humans had weaponized their own destroyed equipment in Asia. Ryloth soldiers pursuing human survivors found themselves walking into fields of homemade landmines, constructed from farming equipment and household chemicals. Nothing sophisticated. Nothing advanced. Just desperate ingenuity turned deadly. These creatures adapt, Threlix observed, watching reports flood his screens. They learn from every encounter. Every death teaches them something new. His tactical officer looked nervous. Should we change our operational patterns, Commander? Threlix considered it. But changing tactics admitted weakness. The Empire did not show weakness. No, maintain current operations. Their resistance will collapse. It always does. But in his private quarters that night, Threlix replayed the combat footage. He watched human soldiers charging alien positions with nothing but rifles and pure determination. He watched civilians throwing Molotov cocktails at armored vehicles. He watched children helping to build barricades. These humans fought like they had nothing left to lose. Because they didn't. The Ryloth Empire had given them a choice: submit or die. The humans chose a third option: take as many aliens with them as possible. And slowly, death by death, ambush by ambush, that choice was beginning to matter. Month 2 of the invasion should have been cleanup operations. Commander Threlix should have been preparing his conquest report for the Empire. Instead, he was losing ground. The maps in his command center told an impossible story. Red zones marking Ryloth control were shrinking. Blue zones indicating human resistance were growing. Territory conquered in Week 1 had been retaken. Supply lines were under constant attack. 3 forward bases had been completely overrun. How? Threlix demanded, his 4 eyes fixed on the tactical displays. We have superior technology, superior training, superior numbers. His tactical officer hesitated before responding. Commander, the humans don't fight like any species we've encountered. They don't follow standard military doctrine. They don't value their lives. They trade 10 casualties for one of ours and call it victory. Lieutenant Tay crouched in the frozen forests of Siberia, watching another Vryloth convoy approach. His team had attacked 17 convoys in the past month. Each attack refined their tactics. Each ambush taught them something new about alien weaknesses. Disruptor active, his communications specialist whispered. The alien shields flickered. Human weapons opened fire from 3 directions simultaneously. But this time, the Vryloth were ready. They had learned too. Energy barriers went up faster. Return fire was more accurate. 2 of Tay's soldiers fell in the first exchange. Adapt, Tay growled. He hand-signaled his team to fall back into prepared tunnels. The aliens pursued, confident in their armor and weapons. They entered the kill zone. Tay detonated the explosives buried beneath 2 meters of snow and frozen earth. The blast collapsed an entire hillside onto the convoy. Rock and ice buried aliens and vehicles alike. Those who survived the avalanche found themselves trapped, their communications jammed, their shields struggling against tons of debris. This is war, Tay said quietly, watching the burial site. You wanted to teach us about conquest. We're teaching you about dying. In North America, Sergeant Wu had become something of a legend. Other soldiers called him the Ghost because his unit could disappear into urban ruins like smoke. They struck Vryloth patrols and vanished before reinforcements arrived. They turned bombed cities into hunting grounds. Wu stood in what used to be a shopping mall in Detroit. His team had spent 3 days preparing this location. Fake heat signatures to draw aliens in. Collapsed floors rigged to give way. Exit routes memorized in complete darkness. Every detail planned. Contact, his spotter reported. 20 aliens moving through Sector 7. Let them come. The Vryloth entered the mall in standard combat formation. Their thermal scanners showed multiple human heat signatures throughout the building. Easy targets. They advanced confidently. The floor collapsed beneath the first squad. 10 aliens fell 3 stories into a basement flooded with chemical waste from nearby factories. Their armor protected them from the fall, but not from the corrosive liquid eating through seals and joints. The remaining aliens opened fire on what they thought were human positions. The heat signatures were decoys, carefully placed thermal packs. The real humans were already moving, striking from unexpected angles, using the building structure as both weapon and shield. Urban combat isn't about superior firepower, Wu later explained to new recruits. It's about knowing every brick, every wire, every pipe in your environment. This is our home. We built these cities. We know how to unmake them. Major Hannah coordinated these efforts from Pacific Command. Her underground facility had become the nerve center of human resistance. Data flowed in from every continent. Every successful tactic was documented. Every hard-won lesson was shared instantly across secure networks. The Vryloth are adapting to our frequency disruptors, a technician reported. They're cycling their shield frequencies now. Then we adapt faster, Hannah responded. She called Yuna's research team. We need version 2 of the disruptor. How long? 4 days, Yuna replied, exhaustion clear in her voice. You have 3. Yuna and her team didn't sleep. They worked in shifts, testing, failing, refining. The new disruptor could track frequency changes and adjust in real time. It was heavier, more complex, but infinitely more effective. While scientists worked, soldiers fought. Colonel Jin led a massive counterattack on a Vryloth position in what used to be Shanghai. 3,000 human soldiers against 800 aliens. The conventional wisdom said humans needed 5-to-1 odds to overcome alien technology. Jin brought 4-to-1, and something the Vryloth didn't expect: artillery. They adapted to close combat, Jin explained to his officers. They learned to handle urban warfare. so we won't get close. We'll pound them from 10 kilometers away with every gun we have. The barrage lasted 6 hours. Human artillery, using targeting data from drone surveillance, rained shells onto the alien position with merciless precision. When the guns fell silent, Jin's infantry moved in. They found alien technology scattered, shields overloaded by sustained bombardment. Survivors shell-shocked and disoriented. Victory belongs to the side that adapts fastest, Jin reported to Major Hana. The aliens are learning our tactics. We need to invent new ones every week. Commander Threlix read Jin's after-action report with growing dread. The humans weren't just adapting. They were innovating. Every time the Crimson Legion learned to counter one tactic, the humans invented 3 more. It was like fighting smoke. Like fighting water. Every time you thought you had them contained, they found another way through. Request immediate extraction. Threlix sent to his fleet in orbit. The primary mission cannot be completed with current forces. The reply came 3 days later. Extraction denied. Reinforcements denied. Complete your mission or die with honor, Commander. Threlix understood. The Empire was watching. To admit defeat against a primitive species would bring shame to his entire people. He had 2 choices, conquer Earth or become a footnote in Vryloth history. Prepare total warfare protocols, he ordered. No more restraint. No more selective targeting. We burn this planet until nothing moves. But that night, as Threlix reviewed casualty reports, he noticed something that chilled him despite his armored skin. The Crimson Legion now numbered 4,200 soldiers. He had lost 800 elite warriors. 800 veterans who had conquered worlds. Lost to a species that didn't even have proper space travel. And the reports kept coming. Ambush in Brazil. Convoy destroyed in India. Forward base overrun in Egypt. Each report was similar. Humans using terrain as a weapon. Humans adapting to Vryloth tactics faster than the aliens could adapt to theirs. Humans refusing to surrender even when surrounded. Even when dying in her underground command center, Major Hana studied the same numbers Threlix was seeing. 800 alien casualties. It had cost humanity 300,000 soldiers and 2 million civilians. A horrific exchange rate. But they were winning. We can't keep trading lives like this, one of her officers said quietly. We won't have to, Hana replied. They came here expecting us to break. Expected us to submit. They've never fought a species that would rather die than surrender. Every day they stay, they lose soldiers they can't replace. Every day we stay alive, we get stronger. She pulled up a global tactical map. Blue zones, marking human control, were spreading. Slowly, painfully, bought with rivers of blood. But spreading. They sent their finest soldiers to break us, Hana said. We're going to bury them instead. 3 months after the first drop pods fell, Earth had become a graveyard for alien ambitions. The Vryloth controlled less territory than they had in Week 2. Their supply lines were in chaos. Their communication networks were compromised. The Crimson Legion was dying. Commander Threlix stood in his command center, surrounded by red alert indicators. His mandibles clicked nervously as he studied reports from across the planet. Every position was under attack. Every base was requesting support he couldn't provide. Sir, the humans have breached Sector 12, an officer reported. They're using our own weapons against us. That was the worst part. The humans had learned to scavenge Vryloth technology from fallen soldiers. They couldn't manufacture it, but they could use it. Dead aliens were stripped of armor, weapons, and equipment within minutes of falling. Human soldiers now carried energy rifles alongside their primitive firearms in the frozen wastes of Siberia. Lieutenant Tay led an assault on a minor Vryloth outpost. His team moved like professionals now, bearing little resemblance to the desperate defenders of 3 months ago. They wore pieces of alien armor over their regular gear. They carried captured energy weapons. They moved with the confidence of soldiers who had survived hell. Disruptor version 3 active, his specialist reported. The alien shields collapsed entirely. Tay's team rushed the position before the Vryloth could react. The battle was short and brutal. No prisoners. No mercy. Just the ruthless efficiency of humans who had learned to kill aliens very, very well. Yuna received the outpost computer core 6 hours later. She and her team tore into it like archaeologists discovering treasure. Every bit of alien data was valuable. Ship codes, supply schedules, communication protocols, engineering specifications. They're not getting reinforcements, Yuna discovered, reading through captured orders. The Empire abandoned them. She shared this information with Major Hana immediately. The implications were enormous. The Crimson Legion was alone. Cut off. No support coming. They could be beaten. Distribute this to all forces, Hana ordered. Every soldier needs to know the aliens are stranded here. If we push hard enough, we can end this. But the Vryloth weren't finished. Commander Threlix made a desperate decision. He would fortify one position with everything he had left. Make it impregnable. Force the humans to break themselves against superior defenses. Then, maybe, he could negotiate a withdrawal with honor intact. He chose the Arctic, remote, defensible, easy to supply from orbit. His engineers spent 2 weeks building a fortress on solid ice. Energy barriers, automated turrets, underground bunkers. 3,000 soldiers protected by the finest technology the Empire possessed. Let them come, Threlix said, surveying his creation. Let them throw themselves at true Vryloth military might. Lieutenant Wan received the assignment to study the Arctic fortress. He was a tactical analyst, not a frontline soldier. His job was to find weaknesses in enemy positions. He spent 3 weeks observing the fortress through long-range surveillance. He watched patrol patterns, supply deliveries, waste disposal, everything. The fortress is perfect, Huan reported to Colonel Jin. Impregnable. We can't breach those walls with anything we have. Then we don't breach the walls, Jin replied. We breach the ice. The plan was insane, suicidal, brilliant. Wan would coordinate 12 nations' special forces in a simultaneous assault. Not on the fortress, but on the ice shelf beneath it. They would use every explosive, every thermal charge, every piece of mining equipment they could gather. They would crack the ice and drop 3,000 Vryloth soldiers into the Arctic Ocean. Captain Sora volunteered to lead the aerial component. She was a pilot, flying a retrofitted mining ship that had been converted into a makeshift bomber. Her cargo bay was filled with Yuna's latest creation, an electromagnetic pulse bomb designed to overload every Vryloth shield in a 5-kilometer radius. You understand this is a one-way trip, Wan told her before the mission. I understand we're winning, Sora replied. I understand my death might end this war. That's enough. The assault began at dawn. Human forces struck from 12 directions simultaneously. Explosives detonated across the ice sheet in calculated patterns. The Vryloth responded with overwhelming firepower, but they were shooting at diversions. The real attack was beneath their feet. Sora's ship came in low, skimming across the ice. Alien defenses tracked her, fired at her, hit her. Her ship was dying, controls failing, hull breaching. But she had enough. Just enough. She dropped the electromagnetic pulse bomb directly over the fortress and pulled up hard. The device detonated. Every shield for 5 kilometers collapsed instantly. Every electronic system stuttered. Every power cell overloaded. And in that moment of technological darkness, the ice broke. The Vryloth fortress, all its shields and weapons and impregnable walls, dropped into the freezing ocean. 3,000 soldiers in powered armor sank like stones. Some tried to swim. Some tried to seal their armor. Some just screamed as water flooded their suits. Juan watched through binoculars from a distant ridge. He saw Sora's ship spiral into the ice, consumed by flames. He saw the fortress disappear beneath black water. He saw human soldiers diving into that same water, knives and rifles in hand, hunting for survivors. "No survivors," Juan ordered. "Make sure." The humans did. In water cold enough to kill in minutes, wearing nothing but survival suits, they hunted down every alien who had tried to escape. They fought underwater. They fought injured. They fought until every enemy soldier was dead or drowning. One Vryloth warrior, a commander named Velix, made it to the surface. A human soldier named Junho found him clinging to an ice chunk. Junho had lost 3 fingers to frostbite. His survival suit was torn, but he still carried his rifle. "You could let me die," Velix said in broken English, which he had learned from captured human transmissions. "The water will take me soon." "I could," Junho replied, "but I want you to know why you're dying. My city, my family, my world, you tried to take it. We took you instead." He fired once. Velix sank beneath the waves. When the Arctic battle ended, Commander Threlix had lost 3,000 soldiers in a single engagement. The Crimson Legion now numbered fewer than 1,200 troops, scattered across the planet. No reinforcements coming. No hope of victory. "We could surrender," his second officer suggested quietly. "The Empire does not surrender," Threlix replied automatically. But his voice lacked conviction. Major Hana received the Arctic victory report with grim satisfaction. 32,000 human casualties to eliminate 3,000 aliens. The math was brutal, but the war was ending. "They're retreating to their original landing zones," Hana observed on her tactical map. "Consolidating forces. They know they're beaten. Should we offer terms?" An officer asked. Hana thought of Captain Hyan's final transmission, of Lieutenant Tay's frozen forests, of Captain Sora's burning ship, of every soldier and civilian who had died to buy humanity's survival. "No terms," she said coldly. "They came here to conquer. They'll die here instead. Hunt them down. Every last one." Across Earth, human forces began the final push. Not to drive aliens off the planet, but to exterminate them. The Vryloth had shown no mercy in their initial attacks. Humanity would show none in their ending. Commander Threlix sent one final transmission toward his fleet in orbit. "We failed. Tell the Empire that Earth is death. Tell them to never return." The transmission was intercepted and jammed by Yuna's team before it left the atmosphere. The Crimson Legion would die alone, with no one to hear their warning. The final battle took place in Seattle, or what remained of it. The city was a skeleton of twisted steel and shattered concrete. Perfect territory for desperate aliens making their last stand. Commander Threlix gathered his remaining soldiers in the ruins. 347 warriors. All that remained of the mighty Crimson Legion. They erected barriers from rubble. They positioned automated defenses. They prepared to die with whatever honor they could salvage from this disaster. "We failed the Empire," Threlix addressed his troops. "But we will not fail ourselves. We will show these humans what true Vryloth warriors are capable of. We will make them pay for every meter of ground." His soldiers clicked their mandibles in agreement. They were tired, afraid, but they were still warriors of an empire that had ruled the stars for 3,000 years. They would not go quietly. General Bio commanded the human forces surrounding Seattle. He was 60 years old, had lost 2 sons to the invasion, and felt nothing but cold determination. 30,000 soldiers waited for his order. Infantry, armor, artillery, air support. Everything humanity could bring to bear on one final position. Offer them terms, Bo's second-in-command suggested. They're beaten. Why sacrifice more lives? Bo considered it. Then he thought of his sons, of the millions dead, of cities reduced to rubble, of children orphaned and families destroyed. They didn't offer terms when they landed, Bo replied. They came to conquer. Let them learn what that truly costs. He sent a message to the alien position anyway. Not an offer of surrender, but simple information. You are surrounded. You are outnumbered. Lay down your weapons and your deaths will be quick. Threlix read the transmission and clicked his mandibles in bitter amusement. Quick deaths. After 3 months of brutal warfare, the humans thought he feared a slow death. They understood nothing of Ryloth culture. We refuse, Threlix transmitted back. Come and take this ground if you can. The human assault began at dawn. Artillery struck first, turning the eastern edge of the alien position into cratered wasteland. But the Vryloth had prepared for this. Their barriers held. Their automated defenses returned fire with precision. Human infantry advanced under covering fire. The Vryloth met them with energy weapons that carved through armor and flesh. The first wave of soldiers fell. The second wave took their place. Then the third. The humans just kept coming. Lieutenant Tay led a strike team through the rubble-filled streets, using every lesson learned over 3 months of desperate warfare. They moved like ghosts, struck like lightning, disappeared like smoke. His team destroyed 2 automated defense towers before the Vryloth realized they had been flanked. Sergeant Wu brought his urban combat specialists from the north. They turned the ruined buildings into weapons, collapsing structures onto alien positions, flooding underground bunkers, cutting off retreat routes. The Vryloth found themselves fighting in exactly the kind of terrain they had never mastered. The battle raged for 14 hours. Every block was contested. Every building became a fortress. The Vryloth fought with desperate courage, knowing this was their end. The humans fought with cold efficiency, knowing victory was inevitable if they just kept pushing. Commander Threlix found himself in hand-to-hand combat with a human soldier named Minjay. The alien was stronger, his armor superior. But Minjay fought with the ferocity of someone who had nothing left to lose. He jammed a knife into the gap between armor plates. He used his helmet as a club when his rifle ran empty. He clawed at the alien's throat even as energy burns covered his body. Threlix killed him. But it took effort. And in that moment, the commander understood something profound. The humans weren't fighting to win anymore. They had already won. They were fighting to make absolutely certain no aliens survived to threaten Earth again. By afternoon, the Vryloth position had shrunk to a 2-block radius. By evening, it was half that. The aliens fought from rubble piles and burned out vehicles. They fired until their weapons overheated. They threw rocks when ammunition ran out. As the sun set, Commander Threlix stood among the corpses of his soldiers. His armor was damaged. His weapons were empty. Around him, fewer than 20 aliens still breathed. Human forces surrounded them on all sides. "This is General Bio," a voice called across the battlefield in surprisingly good Vryloth language. "You have fought well. This ends now. I offer you water and quick deaths." Threlix climbed onto a pile of rubble so he could see the human commander. Bio was old, weathered, carrying a rifle that looked ancient even by human standards. But his eyes were steady. His stance was that of a soldier who had seen too much death to fear it anymore. "Why did you fight so hard?" Threlix called back. "We would have given you honorable subjugation. Your species would have survived under our rule." Bio was silent for a long moment. Then he walked forward, alone, until he stood at the edge of the alien position. His soldiers tensed but held their fire. "This is our home," Bio said simply. "We don't have another. Every world you've conquered, those species had other colonies, other planets. Somewhere to retreat? Us? We had nowhere to run. So we didn't run. We stayed. And we learned to kill you. Thralix understood then. The Empire had made a critical mistake. They had given humanity a choice between submission and extinction. And the humans had chosen to fight until one side or the other ceased to exist. There was no middle ground. No negotiation. Just survival or oblivion. You should have left us alone, Bio continued. The universe is vast. You could have conquered 1,000 worlds and never bothered with Earth. The Empire does not ignore worlds in its path, Threlix replied. It sounded weak even to his own ears. Then the Empire is going to learn an expensive lesson. General Bio offered water. Threlix drank, tasting defeat and death. Around him, his last soldiers lowered their weapons. Not in surrender, but in simple exhaustion. There was nothing left to fight with. Nothing left to fight for. What did we do wrong? Threlix asked as the end approached. We had superior technology. Superior training. We had conquered 74 worlds before yours. Bio considered the question seriously. You expected us to break. You expected fear to do half your work. But you didn't understand. Fear can make people submit, or it can make them dangerous. You made us dangerous. The final Ryloth warrior fell as the sun touched the horizon. The Battle of Seattle ended not with a dramatic last stand, but with simple exhaustion. Aliens and humans alike too tired to continue. But only one side had reinforcements waiting. The Crimson Legion was extinct. 6 months after the invasion began, the Ryloth Empire finally sent probe ships to investigate their silence. The probes found Earth's orbit filled with debris. They found the planet's surface scarred by war. They found human vessels patrolling the solar system. They found no Ryloth life signs. 5,000 elite soldiers had gone to subjugate one primitive world. None returned to report. None transmitted warning. None survived to explain how they had failed in the War Council chambers of the Ryloth Empire. Military commanders studied the probe data with growing concern. The humans had not just survived. They had advanced. Captured Ryloth shields now protected human ships. Captured weapons had been reverse-engineered. The humans had used war to compress decades of technological development into 6 months. We should send a fleet, one commander argued. 100 ships. 200. Enough to ensure victory. And if they win again? Another asked. If they capture more technology? Learn more of our secrets? What happens when this primitive species becomes our equal? The debate lasted 3 days. Finally, the High Command voted. Earth was placed on the Forbidden Worlds list. No Ryloth ship would approach human space. No contact would be made. The universe was vast. There were other worlds to conquer. Worlds that hadn't learned to kill Ryloth soldiers with terrifying efficiency. On Earth, Lieutenant Day stood in front of the Memorial of First Contact. It was a black wall stretching for kilometers, inscribed with millions of names, soldiers, civilians, children, everyone who had died fighting for humanity's survival. He found Captain Hyon's name first, the man who had transmitted his final observations even as he died. Then Lieutenant Tays, Sergeant Woos, Captain Soros. General Bo's name would be added later, after he recovered from wounds suffered in Seattle. We won, they said quietly to the names on the wall. We actually won. Major Hannah joined him, her own name already selected for when her time came. Not won, survived. There's a difference. Is there? Hannah looked up at the stars. Humanity's first faster-than-light ship was under construction in orbit. The Ryloth had given them the technology they needed to reach beyond their solar system. They had given humanity the knowledge that the universe wasn't empty. They sent their finest soldiers, Hannah said. None returned home to tell the tale. That silence is our victory. But it's also our warning. We know now that we're not alone. We know there are empires out there that see us as prey. So, what do? Hannah smiled grimly. We do what humans do best. We adapt. We prepare. And if they come again, we make sure they regret it even more than the Crimson Legion did. She turned and walked away, leaving Day alone with the wall of names. Each name represented a sacrifice. Each death had purchased knowledge. Each life traded for humanity's survival.